Greetings, friends. It's another edition of
The Lazy Gardeners
with yours truly, BT, and the esteemed, the one, the only, Bobby Jensen.
Oh, I know him. Where is he?
I was genuflecting a
I
little
know.
bit
I saw
here
that
in
with
the
the
live,
arms. I
didn't
know.
live in social studios.
I thought you were
here.
going to hit me.
Never, Bobby.
I know,
Never.
bud.
The only thing I'd hit you with is a cold Coors.
Ooh, Coors Light.
Coors Light, Bobby.
Coors
Light, Bobby.
Coors Light.
Something along
Some
those
of
lines.
wuss.
If you take some peeks at pictures that we have posted on our page at the Alive and Social Network setup there, you'll see us out in the backyard here at the studios with
rehearsing,
with a banquet beer and a Coors Light
rehearsing.
in hand. We're just getting ready for that's called
show prep. Yep.
We call that show prep on the Lazy Gardener Show, and that's what it's all about. We call it lazy, but Bobby, I like that you call it. It's smart gardening.
Well,
it's really
it's got to be smart gardening
here,
because if you're not smart, you're going to do a lot of extra work.
Exactly,
and that's where we come in.
Yeah,
we're going to help you do it the right, easiest way.
And we like to bring special guests in. We've got one special guest on the line, and we'll get to her in just a second, Jessica Johnson-Paxton. I sit on the board of the Minnesota Music Coalition with her,
yes,
cool organization. And she also does radio work down in Northfield.
And she's got issues.
And she works at one of the colleges down there, too, in Northfield. And so we'll learn a little bit more about Jessica and her issues coming up shortly. And then also in the studio, it's Alec Charais. He is the director. He's the marketing and communications manager at Bailey Nurseries. Good to have you here, Alec.
Yeah, I think it's great to have you too. But I have to ask, I missed this pre-production meeting with the Coors Light and the beer. What's going on with that? You said we weren't going to be talking about that.
Our manners. What have we done here, Jensen?
We didn't tell you to come at 10 o'clock, did we?
Oh, yeah, that's right. The meeting started really early, Charais. Really early.
I get up early, but we'll get you next time.
Next time you're in. We had to test out, see if you were the right guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, even though I know you for 20-something years now.
Right. Has it been that long for you two guys? And
sure.
where'd you first hook up? Where'd you first meet Bobby Jensen, Alec?
Back in the old garden center days when I was at Linder's.
He was at Linder's, and Belle and I were doing our Linder thing.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
And that's
that was back in the mid-90s.
22 years ago, something like that.
Holy cow.
Well, we're doing it 20, and then, a couple of years Linder's hasn't been around.
Right. Yeah, they shut
at least
that down.
20 years.
Did you get into this whole landscape and garden thing with a background in horticulture in school or more just serendipity for you, Alec?
Well, actually, the gardening side really wasn't a part of my DNA. I grew up on a farm in northwest Minnesota, so plants were just a part of it. Period.
Yeah.
Gardening grew from there. So when I moved down here back in the '90s, like we're talking. Things just kind of took foothold from there. I decided that going into horticulture was a little easier path than going into pre-med. So, hey.
So did you go to U?
Yeah, I'm a U of M grad.
Cool.
Yeah, proud alumni of the University of Minnesota.
I'm guessing St. Paul campus more so than
right. The Farm Boy campus,
right,
absolutely.
Yeah. And I love that part of the campus.
It's beautiful.
It's quieter, it's bucolic there, and of course all the acreage out there, the greenhouses and what have you.
Yeah,
it's
you want to go check out some pretty gardens. They've got some beautiful plantings there.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah, just lovely. Well, good to have you here, man. I mean, I want to learn a little bit more about. You're the guy when it comes to communications and marketing. So, the history of Bailey Nurseries, which has been around, it's a legendary outfit. So we're going to want to learn a little bit more about Bailey. And
over 100 years.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, 110.
Wow.
110 years.
And then what you do and all of that. Should we dial in with Jessica right away?
Well, let's get Jessica, because she has issues.
She has issues. Jess, good to have you join us on the program. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good, but I like how you keep referring to my issues.
There's air quotes flying through the room here.
Well, I didn't do that. You said you have a tomato problem. That's an issue.
Well, I have multiple problems. First of all, I have to say I don't really consider myself a lazy gardener as much as maybe a clueless gardener.
Well, that's okay.
That falls right in our wheelhouse. We want you to be smarter about what you're doing.
Well, here's the deal. I love to garden, but I do not at all know what I'm doing whatsoever. But it's so darn therapeutic, and I feel like as a lifelong Minnesotan, once the weather's nice and you can get out there and get dirty and smell the dirt and smell the flowers, it's my moral obligation to do so. But typically, I'm trying to find time to squeeze in gardening time while doing a million other things. So this year I was particularly proud of myself for not only getting a garden in, but getting it in before Mother's Day, which for whatever reason I thought that was sort of the deadline. And as a result, I now find out I did everything wrong. So yes, I came out to my garden one day and it looked like my beautiful mature tomato plants had been literally hacked off at the stem. And in all honesty, speaking of issues, I thought that maybe, an ex was just coming and sabotaging my garden.
We'll talk about that. That's a whole different show.
That was the conclusion I immediately jumped to. I know, it's pretty pathetic.
Well, that's those relationship things happen, so it's probably no surprise that jumped up
Especially
in the top of your
if
head.
they just cut off like that.
Exactly.
So one, I don't plant my garden until after Memorial Day. I'm afraid of frost. I don't like doing it twice. So you were great. I mean, traditionally garden centering that's the number one day is Mother's Day, number one weekend. But we live in Minnesota. You still can get a frost. You still can get some cool nights. So I kind of wait till the ground, especially with tomatoes.
Sure. Till
the ground's warm. They just sit there. And you probably had cutworms. I mean, that hacked off right at the bottom. It was probably a cutworm. You can put a little collar, like a little toilet paper tube, cut it, stick it in the ground up a couple inches, and that'll stop the cutworms.
Nice.
Well, and I was going to say, so I must have had my M's mixed up because Mother's Day, Memorial Day, May, Minnesota. I just couldn't keep it all
Yeah, there's a lot of M&Ms.
But I did. Bobby, you are spot on because at first I used Facebook as sort of a crowdsourcing for information to find out what I had done. And people did say cutworms, and I thought, ugh, cutworms. It sounds like, tapeworm or some sort of disease. And sure enough, I did go back out into my garden, and then after Googling cutworm to get more information, I actually saw the actual little critters.
There they are.
The tip that you just offered has actually worked perfectly.
Nice.
There you go.
Say, Bob, we've talked about this before, and I don't know if it works with cutworms. We've talked about it with the slugs, the diatomaceous earth.
Not with cutworms.
It doesn't work with them, though. Okay, got it.
It's like glass to them.
Yeah.
So when a slug slides on its belly, that's with the feels like
diatomaceous.
it's tearing them up. Right?
But a cutworm could just walk over that.
Over
okay,
it.
Gotcha. All right. So, the tube or something to protect
I
it.
was going to say the strange thing for me was that not even that I would have assumed like a worm would have eaten the plant, but it literally just kind of sheared it off. It sheared right through.
Yeah.
Hence the name of the critter. Yeah, there you go. It's a cutworm. Hey, Jess. Issue number 2, among many, apparently, is the addiction to the garden centers. Now, I think you think there's a problem there, but Alec is here from Bailey Nurseries. Bobby's here. He used to own a garden center. Of course, we frequent them. We don't think there's an issue here at all, Alec. No,
Jessica,
you guys like feed my addiction.
Well,
I love it.
You took the words right out of my mouth. What can I do to help perpetuate this?
Keep the cycle going.
Yeah, no, you guys are like gods to me. Absolutely. I think again, as a Minnesotan, there's nothing better than a beautiful nursery or a beautiful gardening center, and I can't drive by one without stopping and touching everything and then smelling my hands because the herbs and the flowers and the color and I can't walk out without buying a bunch of stuff.
So,
because it's therapy.
Do you go just in the spring or do you go all season long?
No, I think I go all season long.
Oh, see,
there's
good.
always something new to discover. I learn a lot too, and you learn a lot from other people that are there feeding their own addiction.
Yeah, talking to each other.
Are good like that. That's a great industry.
It's funny you bring it up, Jess, because one thing I like about going to the garden store is unless somebody's kind of looking something up and they'll use their phone as a reference point, which is cool, everybody's got their heads up and you can actually converse with people, whereby anywhere else in society, it seems these days, everybody got their damn head down on the phone. You just try to talk to somebody on the park bench next to you. Oh, weirdo, what are you talking to me? You used to be able to talk to people.
Gardeners are good people.
Constantly engage and share tips and maybe comment on, what they're planting this year or what they're maybe looking to do, or maybe they're trying something different and they want your opinion. I mean, it's pretty cool when you talk about Minnesotans. I think we're, for the most part, very friendly and outgoing, but we maybe don't share much sort of outside our own little individual bubble. And gardening, they're super social. People just really want to share information and really want to learn more. And I think people just, we all have a shared addiction, and it's therapy to get out there and sort of bond together.
So what I'll do is I'll send you my phone number, and if you call me at any hour of the night, any day of the week, if you got that Jones going, right? You got that Jones going. Call me. Say, hey, Bobby, I'm in a garden center. I'm
Absolutely,
touching
Bobby,
everything.
You're my man.
Anytime.
He's the go-to on that. Jess, before we say so long, let folks know if they're down Northfield Way, when can they listen to you on KYMN Radio, my friend?
Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. I'm the host of All Wheel Drive on KYMN, which is the independently owned radio station here in downtown Northfield.
All-wheel drive.
All-wheel drive.
We love it. Thanks for joining us, my friend.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you.
And we'll get you Bobby's number squared away, okay? We'll do that when we're all done. All right,
Excellent.
baby. See you later. Bye-bye. She's fun. I like her a lot.
She's all right.
Yeah. She'll be fine. And especially with that go-to for from you. That was a really nice.
I'm there for her.
Really nice gesture on your part. She mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, getting her fingers in the dirt and just the therapeutic nature of that. I know that you have a tip about getting your fingernails clean when you're done in the dirt. Let's get that tip out there.
Well, it's not even clean. You don't get them dirty.
You don't even get them dirty.
Rub your nails in a bar of soap, and this way the soap takes over the area that the dirt would, and then when you're finished, just wash your hands, and then they're clean.
I love that idea.
I know. I'm lazy. I don't want to do that.
This is the Lazy Gardener
is
show,
the
isn't it? Holy cow.
It certainly is. And just get that brush in there, and it just
Boom.
washes the soap right out, and there's no dirt in there at all. Oh, my God.
do what
We're
we
loving
can.
that. We're loving that. It is the Lazy Gardeners with Bobby and BT. Here's an invitation from the Alive and Social Network and the two of us as well. You can join landscape designer and founder of Edelweiss Design, Bob Harvey. He's got the stuff that dreams are made of when it comes to making your living space. And an Eden it shall be for all seasons. It's the Landscape and Garden Show with yours truly and Bob Harvey. Find that one here on the Alive and Social Network also.
Good man.
Good man indeed. Yeah, good designer, fun guy.
Speaking of good men,
Alec Charais?
I believe so.
Alec Charais.
Even though you didn't invite me to your beer party.
Alex, you got to go. I could have invited you. That's true.
It's already a terminology thing here because it's not a beer party. It was show prep.
That's exactly right.
So got to get your terms straight there,
That's right.
Charais.
I'm ready to roll.
University of Minnesota grad, St. Paul campus. You guys met at Linder's back in the day. How long have you been the marketing and communications guy then at Bailey Nurseries?
I've been at Bailey's for about 15 years.
Oh,
but
good
I've
stretching,
been,
yeah.
Marketing for 2.
Okay.
So.
Kind of a newer gig that way for
Absolutely,
you then,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, were you called upon to do some of those kind of outreach things along the way? And it's like, hey, Charais pretty good at this. Let's bump him up into that position.
Well, we're still working on that, but we think so.
No, let me tell you, I've done a couple of benefits with him. He does a great job.
Nice.
He knows his stuff. He truly believes in what they're doing there. And Bailey's a great story.
Yeah,
It's great,
it really,
great people.
That's where it all comes together.
Right.
If you're not working for a great place with a good group of people that love what they do, you're just swimming upstream.
Right.
So
Great family.
So 110 years, Bailey Nurseries has been around. Take us back. I mean, when did it all begin with old, great grandpa Bailey or whatever the case would be?
Well, yeah, I was going to say I can't go and tell you from personal experience, but they've been since 1905 is when it all started. They started out as a typical small business of the era. It was haul some produce to the St. Paul Farmers
So truck
Market.
farming,
They were truck farmers,
Right.
and before you know it, they were they started bringing in some bare root shrubs, which are plants without soil. They would just dig them out of the field and bundle them up and bag them up and bring them to sell, and the business grew from there.
Kept going from
Yeah.
How
there.
many
Wow.
acres do they have? Now you're in Oregon.
Yeah, we have 2,500 acres here of nursery production space in Minnesota.
And where is that? I mean, where
Well,
was sort of the
where
Bailey founding
It-
area?
It's headquartered just in Newport.
Okay.
Just south of Woodbury.
Yep.
And there's fields spread throughout Woodbury, Cottage Grove, and Hastings, all
Gotcha.
throughout there. So it's not just one big chunk of land.
Yeah, but that general vicinity then, that general
Yeah.
part of the Twin
You
Cities
drive.
area.
You're out that way, and you drive by a field of something growing.
Probably Bailey,
theirs.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, chances are pretty good at that. So there's growing facility here. We've got about the same amount of acreage also in Oregon that we had expanded to about 35 years ago. so we can take advantage of the warmer climate
Beautiful
there.
out there, too.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we can't grow here in Minnesota, or things that we can grow a little faster in Oregon and take advantage of a longer growing season.
Now, do you have markets that you service in that area with the Oregon
They
growing, or
service
do you
the
bring
United
it here,
States.
or the whole U.S.?
Yeah,
then?
we actually, we're a national company.
Yeah,
so we
cool.
service the entire United States, and we've actually got licensees in Europe as well.
That's awesome.
And actually other countries. So
I used to deal with Bailey's when I had my garden centers in New Jersey.
How about that? So that that era for you matched up even with.
And that was about 100 years ago.
I remember Grandpa Bailey. He was a nice fella.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So this became a national thing.
Huge.
Some years ago. Then. Yeah.
Oh, it absolutely did, and really in the last 10 years, it's exploded beyond just being a national grower.
Yeah.
We've got 3 main consumer product lines that we own and we sell and manage. The Endless Summer Hydrangea Collection, which is a group of 4 beautiful hydrangeas. Hopefully, a lot of your listeners and yourselves have them in your gardens.
I've got some.
Bloomstruck, baby.
Bloomstruck. We got to talk about Bloomstruck.
I know
for
we
a
do.
bit. Yeah. So that's one. Another brand is First Editions, which is a broader collection of trees, shrubs, roses, perennials, you name it. Plants that are great for this area. So there's a lot of things to choose from there. And then the third is a rose brand called Easy Elegance, which are just fantastic shrub roses, easy care, plant them and forget them. Perfect for the lazy gardener.
I was going to say easy, lazy, very much similar in the sound of the word, the Z and the Y, or
There's
the
no
S and the Y, Z and the Y.
They look like a hybrid tea rose. They perform like a hybrid tea rose, but you don't have to go out and spray them every week, and they don't get as much. I don't even know if they get any disease at all. I think everything gets a little.
The breeding work behind Easy Elegance, disease resistance is one of the highest criteria, along with repeat flowering on a shrub rose.
Right.
So you don't have to do all the work that you were talking about.
And then again, you don't have to bury it in the fall.
Yeah, in the fall, get ready for
Because
winter.
it'll take its own root.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I'm a gardener that I bet is very much like your listeners, and it's simply because I'm working in the summer and running around, and I don't have the time to take care of this stuff either. So I'm all about easy care.
Yeah. Who do you work with when it comes to developing these things? So, like Easy Elegance, let's use that as an example. You need to breed it for its hardiness. You need to breed it for that blooming ability. Mm-hmm. What kind of steps do you do? Do you work with folks like horticulturists at the U of M and studied universities and things like that? Or I'm sure you got a staff that does a lot of that, but there's a whole lot of maybe higher learning that needs to go into that curve too.
That is a huge behind the scenes part of our business that people would never really realize. I'm glad you brought it up. We do work with universities such as folks at the University of Minnesota, the University of Georgia, and everywhere in between.
And Europe.
We work with breeders in Europe. We've got, whether it's private breeders or breeding companies. We happen to be a breeding company ourselves.
Okay.
So it's multifaceted. Plants come from many directions. Our biggest challenge is to make sure that we take our time and evaluate, and make sure that it's not just a slight difference. It's something that's really unique, something that's really going to perform for the gardener. So we take a lot of time to make sure that we're doing as much testing as we can.
And then building up to where it's available to sell. I mean, you can't grow something. Oh, this is great. Next year we're going to sell 10,000 of these. I don't think so.
We've got 5.
Takes years.
Because you got to get that stock built up. Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're always trying to forecast, and we never get quite right, but we try.
We were talking about trees. There's going to be a shortage of trees because 2-3 years ago, when things were slower,
when the economy was
construction
slower,
was down, people said, "Okay, we can't grow as many trees." Now it picks up, and that crop's coming due.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
so it gets tougher. It's a tough business.
And you got to stay ahead of the curve, and you can't always predict where things are going to be. Sure, when that 08-09 financial bubble burst, you guys were charting a course, I'm sure, for some of the same buoyancy that everybody else was.
I'm sure they threw away a lot of trees.
At the time we did.
Yeah.
But the great thing about what we do is we're always growing something. So the fact of the matter is there's a lot of great plants out there available for sale, and go to a garden center, you're going to find something.
Two things that I want to talk about. One is Bloomstruck, and the other is the backyard gardening, the city, the small space gardening, the plants that you develop. Speak a little bit about that stuff.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, let's start with Bloomstruck,
right.
Which is in the Endless Summer collection that I mentioned earlier. It's a hydrangea. And there's a lot of different types of hydrangeas out there. A lot of people are probably familiar with the traditional Annabelle hydrangea, which is the big white mop head that we've seen for years, and it's become a classic.
A standard.
Yeah. The Endless Summer collection is a group of 4 hydrangeas that are a different type than that Annabelle, but equally beautiful and in my opinion, even more beautiful.
And difference, one is woody and one melts back down to the ground.
Right. The Endless Summer collection, typically in this climate, where where we're in Zone 4, which is where USDA Zone 4, more often than not, Endless Summer varieties are going to die back to the ground. Doesn't mean they're dead. Just means that
they die back to the ground.
That's right. Just like a herbaceous perennial would.
Yep.
So the biggest challenge that was getting folks to understand really how that process worked, and that nothing was wrong with their plants. And we talked about breeding a little bit, and the fact that we're doing a lot of work in making improvements to the varieties, and that's where Bloomstruck comes in. Endless Summer, the original, came out in 2004, and it's that beautiful, rich blue hydrangea in acid soils, that beautiful mop head. And
I can remember when that came out too, because Bobby and
There
Bill
was a
did
craze.
segments on Grow, and
it was sliced bread, baby.
It was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it was the
very
first.
cool.
It was the first macrophylla that would grow here.
And
That's right.
also the fact that it came out of a Minnesota company, which was really a nice nod for you guys. And it was just, we're yokels here. The lazy gardeners are yokels. We always take hey, that's
excuse
one
me?
of the half of the
I'm from
lazy
the city,
half of the
man.
lazy
From New
gardeners are
Jersey.
yokels. Half of them are. That you get that whole Minnesota vibe going. Or the Jersey vibe. You're just happy. You got a little pride in that.
What a lot of people don't know about Endless Summer is it actually had existed in Minnesota back since 1998. So it had been here quite a long time before we even introduced it.
Okay.
So anyway, that's a little backstory on that. But you're right. It's been an incredibly successful brand and collection of plants, and through our continued breeding, we've come up with a variety, Bloomstruck, which is, in our opinion, far superior, especially for the more northern gardener. Simply because Bloomstruck, you've got some more intense color. Where you get these,
What is the color, by the way?
It's a beautiful, in acid soils, it's a beautiful rich purple. It can achieve purple.
Wow.
And it can shade anywhere from purple to an intense kind of electric blue, depending on
Blurple.
How much acid in the soil? What
It's
the pH in
blurple.
the soil is? Okay.
Exactly.
Blurple.
It's blurple.
Blurple.
Yep. Or if you're in more alkaline soil, you're still going to get a beautiful rose pink color. So it's fantastic in that from that standpoint. What we love about Bloomstruck is it is exactly what we have always intended for that collection. It's a blooming machine.
It is a blooming machine.
It just, once it starts setting flower bud in June, it will not stop until the freeze.
That's great.
And around here, that's what we're all desperate for in our landscape.
I got a perfect spot for one. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
that's-
I'm doing it already in my head.
Good going. What
Yeah.
is a perfect spot for them?
They love rich organic soil. So if you're in a place like where I live, I'm up in Anoka, it's really sandy and dry, you're going to have to amend your soil and plant it somewhere where it's softened from that heat of the afternoon. So somewhere where you're getting that partial filtered light, an eastern exposure, a northern exposure if you don't have a lot of tree cover, but really nice and fertile, like you'd expect a hosta to be growing in. That kind of condition is really conducive for Endless Summer. They like light. They don't like it heavy shade.
They won't bloom.
They won't bloom very well. So they like that filtered light coming in. But because our growing season here is so short, you can get by with more sunlight in areas that you might never think of it. They just might need a little bit more water.
And mulch.
Mulch is kind of the standard in my mind.
Of course.
Yeah, got to keep a good layer on there.
Yeah, because
keep it protected.
if you really
Okay.
want to talk about, let's not put a lot of work in, we want to enjoy things
Mulch,
by the
mulch,
patio.
mulch.
Mulch it today, and you'll be drinking tomorrow.
Right on.
We love that thought.
3 inches of mulch,
Well,
man.
Bobby knows my landscape. There's a whole lot of sand in there because it was built originally as an alpine garden landscape. So that's that very sandy type of
alpine
mountainside.
plants, all
and
alpine plants,
But
too.
we've done a number of places where, we dug in deep, amended that chunk, where a certain plant is going to go in. So, like I said a second ago, I got a perfect spot in my mind.
it's beautiful,
for it.
beautiful.
Well, one of the things too, people, especially as they've grown the original, which is that blue one that we talked about earlier. One thing is it tends to wilt and flop in the heat, and it's not because it's dry. A lot of times in the heat of summer, when they're in full bloom, Endless Summer will kind of droop down. That's a heat response.
Okay.
Doesn't mean you have to run out with the water hose and take care of it. It just means that when the evening starts cooling off, the flowers will pop right back up. Bloomstruck is super heat tolerant, so it's not going to do that like the original does.
Okay,
that
real
was
good.
some of the issue with people didn't understand with endless summer. They'd water it, and the more you watered it, the more vegetative it got, and it didn't set bloom. So you actually should leave it at that point. If you have endless summer, just leave it alone. It usually comes back in the course of the night. If it doesn't, then maybe give it some water. But
So be lazy. Don't freak out.
don't mother that sucker.
Right. Just get yourself another cocktail and
There you go.
just
Sit
lighten
there.
up a little
There you
bit.
go.
Well, and here's the other tip too about especially the plants in the endless summer collection is if you don't have a shady spot in your yard or a filtered spot, and it's
Dappled
nothing,
sun,
if
yeah.
it's just constantly hot, maybe you're in a newer development where you get with a lot of young trees and you don't have a lot of canopy. Put it in a patio pot.
Right.
Oh, sure.
Put it in a treat it like an annual. It's a beautiful flowering plant.
Well, that was the same thing when we were up in your place, that I wanted to take one and stick it on my deck and
Right.
just put it in a pot. Man, I still may do it. I've got one more pot left.
Right.
Just beautiful.
So now if you treat it that way, though, and put it in a pot and you want to keep it for next year, what do you want to do at the end of the season?
I would say by the time you get to September, either plant it in the garden or toss it aside and pick something up next year. 'Cause
Okay.
it's-
Well, he's a salesman, right?
That's right.
Throw it away and buy another bit. But what you
Jessica,
could do,
are you listening? Jessica?
Yeah, let's get back on the phone.
What you could do though is pick the whole pot up and bury the whole pot.
Okay, gotcha.
And get it
gotcha.
below.
Yeah.
It's the above ground that'll kill it.
Okay.
So if
Yeah.
you dug a big enough hole, you stuck the whole pot in a level with the soil, throw some leaves or mulch on top of it, and then pick it up in the spring again.
So, but here's the thing about that. If you do that, you just have to remember that come May, when the rest of the annuals are blooming and the spring colors coming out, the hydrangeas are going to take more time.
Okay.
Right. You
They're
gotta
going to
pot-
have to start growing again, so you probably wouldn't get blooms until July next year.
Okay, so go right out and buy another one.
How about that?
Way to go! See, he
Or
won.
get that
He
rascal
won.
in the ground.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
buy. And
Yeah,
then,
if you
here's what
put
I'm
it-
going to say: get that rascal in the ground,
And
and
buy
then buy
another
another one
one,
for the pot.
Well, yeah, and especially when you plant it, in the fall, you'll want to make sure that you mulch it before winter at that point,
Yeah,
just because.
sure.
This segment brought to you by Bailey's Nursery.
Indeed. Well, that sounds. That sounds like the perfect kind of lazy gardening plant, like you said.
It really is.
Just you really don't have to
easy.
worry about a whole lot and have more time for a cocktail.
Watch it flower.
What do we got here, Bob? We got 5-10 minutes here, Bobby.
cool.
We're looking good. We're
Cool.
looking good on time on the Lazy Gardener here. I wanted to bring up something that we talked about before we got the show rocking, and it came up in our conversation here with Alec, is mulching, because that's one thing we really want to keep an eye on. A couple of things we wanted to bring up on this edition of the show. Warmer days, so it's weed watch time.
Oh, it's definitely
But,
start thinking about weeds.
but let's double back to the mulching thing
okay,
right now.
Minnesotans, I hate to tell you this, but rock is not mulch. Rock is hot in the summer, cold in the winter. It doesn't hold moisture. It doesn't release moisture. And think about that piece of black plastic you put down, and underneath that black plastic is the most fallow, disgustingly inert soil you could find. Mulch does exactly what it's supposed to do. It breaks down, it goes into the soil, it re-energizes the soil. 3 to 4 inches of any organic mulch, that's it. Wood chips. I don't care which one you use, chips, mulch, shredded hardwood. It doesn't matter.
The cypress stuff, whatever
Cypress,
the case may be.
whatever you want to purchase, whatever aesthetically you like, put that down. Do not put anything underneath it. Don't put a weed mat.
Right.
Put it right on the ground. And you don't replace it every year like everybody says. If it's gray and you want to make it look good, rake it. And
you
boom,
go.
it turns brown again.
There you go.
And then all you need to do is make sure you're going to get weeds. Everyone gets weeds blown in. But in the mulch, you get to pick the weed right out of the
Yeah,
mulch
'cause it's not set in the
rooting,
soil.
It's rooting into
Yeah.
soil. So mulch does 2 things. It evens the temperature of the soil, right? It protects the soil. Plants, if you give them consistency, they will figure out how to live there. And the other thing it does, it keeps moisture in the soil.
Yep.
So those two. Why do you think in the winter, in the fall, we say wait till the ground freezes before you mulch in your perennials? It's not to keep the cold out; it's to keep that even cold in all
Okay.
winter.
Okay.
You don't want the freezing and thawing to happen. So, I mean, I know, Minnesota, we love rock. Everybody says the same thing to me. I argue all the time. Well, it's so pretty. But horticulturally, it's doing nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're cutting a hole in a piece of plastic and planting a plant. It can't get nutrients. It's just Go organic, baby.
Yep, let it happen and let that cellulose break down and re-energize that soil.
It's okay. And, and they talk about, well, it takes the nitrogen out of the soil and everything. It does to some extent, but just add nitrogen.
Well, it sure is a lot easier, too, to pull that mulch layer away, get your compost in around the root base there, and then, get that nice and evened out, and then just slop that mulch back on top of it, and everybody's happy.
It's a lot easier to plant another plant if you need to plant one.
That one, too, yeah.
Raking rock and cutting through the plastic. As you can
Exactly.
tell, I'm not a very big fan of that at all.
Well, we're replacing a lot of that gravel scree that we have in our alpine landscape.
Because that's what you had.
And we're keeping it where the alpine plants are because they're used to that, so that's fine.
Well, they need that. That's how they grow.
Yep. But other places where we've taken parts of the garden and turned it into more of just a general fun garden with hydrangeas and hostas and other things. Yep, we've pulled that stuff back and just put some good mulch down there and let it be that way. And a lot less weed stuff in those areas too. By the way, where the scree is, I got to go through that all the time.
Sure, because it can get in there. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the potable berries that you showed me one day. Tell us about those. They amaze me.
Yeah, you're talking about a fruit brand called Brazelberries.
Right.
Yeah, there's Brazelberries is a company or a brand that's owned by a company based out of Oregon, Fall Creek Nursery.
Brasel, Brazel,
Brazel.
Okay.
Berries.
Gotcha. Brazelberries. I love it.
BER. Never mind.
MOUSE. So anyway, there's they have a nice, beautiful collection. There's some blueberry varieties. There's a raspberry called Raspberry Sorbet, I believe. I think I got that right. What's great about how they're putting that collection of plants together, those fruits, is they're really trying to push the gardener past just traditionally putting a row of blueberries or raspberries in the garden and getting people to use them as decorative plants.
Sure.
Especially blueberries in the fall.
Yeah.
Fantastic color.
Yeah. And so they're really expanding their horizon and showing you that you can put them in decorative pots, just like I talked about with Bloomstruck.
Yep.
And so enjoy them on the patio. So especially if you've got space concerns, where you don't have that garden space to do that big, 20 by 40 garden plot, throw some Brazelberries in a decorative container, and you're off and running.
Go out in your robe in the morning, pick some berries, throw it in your cereal.
Get that on top of the Captain Crunch.
There you
Life is good.
Absolutely.
Crunch.
I know. It's been a while, isn't it? I saw you light up there real go, oh, Captain Crunch.
I haven't had Captain Crunch.
Brazel blueberries. That sounds pretty good. Yeah. Hey, before we dive into Weed Watch, another reminder, each week local mortgage expert Tom Smith from AMEC right here in the Twin Cities. He talks about mortgages, refis, and it's Mortgages and BS here on the Alive and Social Network. So you hear some BS too, current events, sports, food, beer, movies, and more. That's every week here on the Alive and Social Network. Weed Watch.
Well, yeah,
Weed Watch.
Somebody asked me about horsetail. Actually, it was on Care 11. And our buddy, Joan Steffen, sent me on Facebook all the benefits to horsetail. Now, horsetail, and it looks prehistoric, and it is prehistoric. It grows in the most infertile soils. It grows like everybody laughed when I said this, but it was the first plant to come back on Mount St. Helens after all of that, because that's the kind of stuff it likes. So if you got horsetail, you want to get more and more organics in the soil so that it doesn't like that. Just like the Bloomstruck, if it's acid, it's purple. If it's base, it's pink. So you have to make the soil more organic and it'll stay away. But things are starting to sprout all over the place. I mean, if you haven't prevented crabgrass, you're probably not going to prevent crabgrass now. It's too late. You're going to have to do post. And remember, the best way of preventing and the most lazy way of preventing crabgrass is grow a good lawn.
Just make the grass better.
A good thick lawn.
Yep.
A good thick lawn will defeat anything.
Keep that blade height high.
But it's all, dandelions are just about done now, but things are coming on. It's get out in the garden. Don't let it get out of hand. Get out there and take a look. I know it's early, but that's the problem. People say, it's early. I don't need to. Then they go out and look in the garden and it's weed infested. So get out there and cultivate a little.
I got a real issue with
a lot of stuff.
A boy like Jessica, I got issues. But especially with the wild rhubarb.
Yeah.
Geez, those tap roots they go down forever. I'm thinking of just, and they're so persistent. Is it a good plan for me to just clip off the big leaves and cap it with something?
Organically, that would be the best way of doing it.
Yeah, because I don't mind that it's going to take some time for it to not get any photosynthesis.
Stick an old beer can. If we had beer cans.
I've got on one of them, I took a coffee can and just turned it upside down, and the root, where the root ball is and where the stems were coming out of that is about the same width as that coffee can. So I just put it up and put some decorative stone on top of it. I don't see it, but give it a year or two for that just to say I can't live and choke itself out, something like that.
I'm organic more than anybody. But I don't have a problem using chemicals if they're used properly and benignly.
Yeah, I hear you.
So in something like that, I might get Roundup and paint it on the leaves.
Okay.
Don't spray it. That was the problem with weed and feeds. I just put it all over my lawn. I don't have weeds all over my lawn.
Yeah.
I got a couple of patches.
Okay.
But if you took Roundup and you mixed it up just enough that you need properly and had a little foam brush and painted it on there, it would kill all the way down to the root system.
So just on those big leaves,
on the big
just
leaves,
paint it on, not spray it on.
Not spray it on.
Okay, gotcha.
Not spray it on, because that way you're not getting it everywhere.
Right.
It's taken in by the plant and going into the root system. You're not putting it in the soil. So there are sometimes
judicious ways to do it
of using it, and you'll get a lot more organic from us. But when there's times to do things and it's the way to do it, smart and easy, we'll tell you how to do it that way too.
I like the painting idea.
Paint it on. You don't have to spray it all over the place.
And wear some rubber gloves or something, and then you're all good.
Follow the instructions.
Just do that. All right.
on.
Alec, what a pleasure having you here, man. Can you come back and visit us sometime in the future too?
I'd be happy to.
But you know what that involves already now, don't you?
I do.
We start at
Pre-show
10:30.
planning.
I'm waiting for the magic word.
We start at 10:30. We tape at 3:00 in the afternoon, 2:00 in the afternoon.
Indeed.
So.
Hey, before we say so long, from your perspective on the sort of the head shed level marketing and communications guy at Bailey Nurseries, what are people trending into this season? Some things that are just people are getting more of this. They're hip to this. They're putting it in their gardens. In addition to these three great lines, the Endless Summer and First Editions and Easy Elegance, we want to give you guys some props on those. The Brazelberries, maybe, but what else is going on out there in your perspective?
People are just getting in the garden again.
Okay,
really,
good.
that's something that we've noticed for especially the last 2 years now. You mentioned the 2009, so that's exciting to see. Trees are hot.
Okay.
Trees are popular again,
back to doing
which is really good to see. And then small, plants for small spaces, simply because we've filled up a lot of our gardens, so we're looking for things to plant in other
kind of
spots.
tuck in,
So and it can range from anything from plants that are 3 foot and smaller from the shrub side to even vertical trees. We're growing a lot more vertical trees than we ever did before. Things like a birch called Parkland Pillar, which is a beautiful upright birch. Gladiator crabapple, again, a nice upright crabapple.
I mean, thin.
We're talking nice narrow growers.
Like you like to talk about those backyard urban gardens.
Yeah. Yep. My rule is if you've got a foot, you've got a place for plants. So
there you go.
I like it.
Yeah.
And speaking of perennials, think you can get Debbie Lonnie to come visit me?
Well, we'll knock on her door.
Knock on her door.
Who's Debbie, Bobby?
Debbie has forgotten more about gardening and especially perennials than anybody I know in this state. She is a gem. She's a Minnesota treasure.
Oh, let's get her on then. Let's do it.
She's actually running our breeding operation. So
I heard that.
She's running back and forth between here and in Georgia, so that's probably why you're not catching her.
Right on.
If you see my friend, ask her to please
be happy.
give me a buzz.
We'll get her on.
Yeah,
I love
we will
that
do
idea.
that. Alec, thank you so much for coming by, and good luck to you again this year.
Oh, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
I'm BT.
I'm Bobby Jensen.
Another edition of The Lazy Gardeners behind us here on the Alive and Social Network. We'll see you next week.
What's this, like 4?
Oh, we're into it now.
God, we're quadrupled.
I hear that famous song that Aerosmith had a hit with too. A train kept a rolling all night long. A train kept a rolling. Oh, I'm hearing it in my head. But, Bobby,
I hear things in my head too, but I don't. They don't come out.
Remember the issues part? Yeah, we got it here.
See you, B.